Okay, so we've introduced this idea of building a culture where people do their best work and live their best lives. Why is it a culture? Why can't you just either make an edict or make it a skill set? Like tell people, here are the 5 things you need to do to take care of yourselves. Because they won't do it long enough for it to actually work. This is a journey. If we use mountain climbing as the example, there is a huge mountain to climb. It's thousands of hours, it's thousands of days of coming in and applying oneself, smoothing out this stone, if you will. That does not happen quickly. And unfortunately, for most people, they're going to quit before they ever get there. So we introduced this idea in our own company. We said, we want to be a place where you do your best work, you live your best life. What was the reaction? Well, everyone loved it, of course. Well, not exactly. Yes, there were people who loved it. Yes, there were people trying to do it. And like, yes, these are the words that describe how I think about my work. But that wasn't the whole group. We had other people saying, wait, what are we calling it now? How are we trying to put lipstick on this burnout thing that we're doing? They felt like hypocrites. They would say it, but they weren't really experiencing it. And then, unfortunately, there was another group that's like, this is cruel. You guys are making it sound like I should actually enjoy this crazy, chaotic, stressful thing called work. I'm trying to survive here. And it's pretty insulting, in fact, for you to tell me I should smile and tell everybody it's great. I don't even know if it's real. I don't even know if it's possible. We realized we have some work to do. And the first thing that we had to explain is this is not what we're talking about. We are not trying to create some sort of stock image of what great would be. That is like a musical version of work. But they also need to hear, we are not trying to hurt you. The experience you're having right now, work, the cliffhanger, that's not our intention either. We know you can't hold on forever. We're trying to create this thing where you actually love your work. You love your team members. You are working on a purpose that is hard and challenging, just like a winning team. There's going to be blood, sweat, and tears. But you don't have to like it all the time to love it. These are 2 very different concepts. What would it take for you to love it? And ultimately, a lot of our leaders saying, we need to get real. Where are we on this continuum between being people first and being about our people, which we used to use the F word a lot, family. Say, we're like a family. Or are we over here on the high performance team side, where it's really about results and you do what you need to do to deliver those results? And we had to actually say, no, it's not either one of those. I want you to rethink this paradigm. This is actually 2 different things, and we need them both. We need to be for our people, and we need to be for performance. If we're not, no one wants to work there where people don't matter and nobody talks about results. But when you only talk about results, which is the most common thing in growth organizations, it's a cliffhanger. People get into survival mode and they have a really hard time getting out of it. They start to fantasize that maybe they want to go to this purely people-oriented place where we don't have to worry about the results so much. I'd argue that place does not exist. What happens in a place where people don't focus on results? Well, not only may you not achieve them, but the high achievers, the people that really value delivering and achieving, they're going to leave because you don't ever talk about achievement. No, that's not sustainable either. This idea of loving your work, loving your team, having each other's back, leaning in and experiencing the best of both, it's the only sustainable model. It's just that most people don't know how to do it. And a lot of people, honestly, they don't even believe we have the people. They think, okay, this would work if I could just get all high performers. We got to let that go too. Let's look at some data here. What is the number 1 driver of extreme satisfaction at work? It's not money. It's achievement. If you actually look over large groups of people, you're going to find the thing they actually really love about work is winning, is getting things done. Ask anybody in the last 6 months, what was one of the best days on the job? It's not a day where they hid or they sat around and ate bonbons. It was a day they achieved. Now, yes, there are some other things down here. You notice that the things that drive extreme dissatisfaction, those have to be addressed too. And a lot of them have to do with management and the dumb policies that we make. Now, we think they're great policies, but when people don't like them, we need to ask why. We need to maybe explain why they exist, or we need to fix them. Now, if you're thinking, okay, maybe this is a little bit of data over the course of a few decades, but I don't know, that still seems like it's just about finding the right high achievers. Well, to that, let's back up again. This was Mr. Maslow's work. And he, pretty early on, was a champion for people. I mean, he said, look, inside every single person you meet is a desire to achieve one's potential. Now, he argued at the time, I don't know that very many people are going to get to experience this because people are complicated, and that need to achieve may not emerge if it's covered up in all these other needs. But he revised this. I only learned about the bottom of the pyramid. Maybe you learned about the whole thing. But 16 years later, in 1970, he added something above. He agreed, actually, that is a pretty selfish model. That actually, when you get people having their needs met, they start to actually grow, they start to achieve their potential, there's something else that emerges. They actually want to contribute to other people. They want to orient towards goals outside themselves. And that's awesome. He called it self-transcendence. I would just call it, that's actually the potential that exists inside every single person with a pulse. And if you find that people are stuck and they're not growing and they don't seem to be oriented towards other people's goals, they might just have some needs that aren't being met. Now, how do you get them out of it? Well, Mr. Maslow did have some thoughts on that. He said people can't be completely contented with themselves if they're focused on themselves. The only path to completely being contented with oneself is when you are striving for something else. Are your people really clear on who they are there to serve? Are their own needs being met so that they are available mentally, physically, emotionally to lean in and serve other people? What this looks like is getting people thriving. And if we want to learn how do we create this kind of culture, we've got to figure out how do we help people do both best work and best life at the same time. The truth is, a lot of people don't even know what that looks like. What does it look like for you? What would have to be true for you to say, I am doing my very best work? What would have to be true for you to say, I am actually living my best life? Do you know? Because a lot of people don't know what to head towards. They just know they're tired of being stressed out and tired all the time. So where do we go for clues? Well, like many things, we go to research. And there is a study. The longest study of human growth and development was still being done, actually, but it was started at Harvard. And so this is a 75-year study of human thriving and trying to figure out what causes people to become happy and stay happy and healthy. And one of the first things they learned is people are not good at this. If we ask you to guess what's going to make you happy, you're pretty unlikely to be right. In fact, if we ask young people, even young people today, what is it that you think living your best life requires? What would have to be true? The number one answer is that they would be wealthy. Turns out money's kind of complicated. They're also not very good at remembering what made them happy. So this was a study of people they contacted and they surveyed and they took blood work and they asked lots of questions and they looked at their medical history every year over decades. Turns out we kind of forget what makes us happy too. And some of the takeaways are very simple, but they're not easy. Things like exercise, things like quality relationships, things like meaning. You know what makes these things possible? Others. Being in a small group of people who are pursuing some of the same things makes it possible for us to stay on track, which actually happens at work. Now, if you want to know, is it really worth it? How much benefit is there? Well, Derek Muller, he has a YouTube channel called Veritasium, where he goes and he digs deeper and looks between the cracks and adds research. And when he took a look at this, he said, how big a deal is this exercise thing? Huge. It's not surprising to you, right? 15 minutes a day could extend your life by 3 years. An additional 15 minutes a day would extend it by another 3 years. Active people have a 30% reduction in cognitive decline. We need to be moving more. Why don't we? Because we're busy, stressed out, and tired. We need to be leaning into our relationships. Turns out strong relationships yield 50% lower chance of death. And that loneliness is as hard on the body as obesity and smoking. Well, where could we maybe develop some relationships? At work. We have people around us. How could we be lonely? Because we're fighting with each other, because we're stressed out, because we don't know how to do this modern work thing. When it comes to money, that's complicated. You ask most people, what would solve your problems? Most of them would say, if I just had more money. One of the leading studies on money said, satisfaction pretty much plateaus as soon as you've covered your cost of living. The average was $75,000 in this one study. Now, thankfully, there was some other research that said maybe not so fast. Matthew Killingsworth, he found no plateau in life satisfaction with income. So first they fought, then they got together and said, we got to resolve this. And they found out something profound. The ones who really plateau are the ones who are the least happy to begin with. When you take somebody who's happy and then you add more money, well, actually they get happier. The takeaway is if we want happy people who are thriving, we can't have them just thinking, I just need more money, I just need a raise. We actually have to help them figure out, how do you find happiness outside of money? And then more money is actually going to make you more happy, which is a great news. So how do we find a way to make people happy? Well, to this, I turn to Marty Seligman. If you don't know Marty, he's at the University of Pennsylvania. He's considered the father of positive psychology. His first book, Authentic Happiness, introduced ideas of positive emotions, engagement, and meaning as being key drivers of a thriving human being. Unfortunately, that was early, and he felt very pressured by the publishers to say certain things. He came back years later, and he published Flourish. He brought a more full model where he introduces things like achievement, accomplishment, relationships, some of the things that we see now in the Harvard research. These things now tell us there is a complex relationship between us and happiness. But you get us thriving, you get us engaged in good work, you get us working hard and achieving, happiness shows up. These are things that are possible for anybody, and they're possible at work. All right, how do we do this? Well, first we got to figure out where to start. So I'm going to end this video by asking you to self-assess. How much of these things are you seeing in your life on a scale of 1 to 10? Positive emotions, engagement, positive relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. I challenge you to take that self-assessment. Identify where could we be stronger. Then if you want to do something as a leader, assess this for your people. Yes, they need to see us doing our best work and living our best lives. If they're really going to believe it's possible, then we got to lean in and start to say, how do we help make it possible for them? Hope that's helpful. If you want to talk about how we can actually engineer this into our work, take a look at the next video.